The phone rang at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. I was 13 years old and on the living room couch, pretending to do homework while I watched my mother fold clothes in the kitchen. She hummed softly, that old song she always sang when she was happy. My father was in the office, locked up as usual. When her cell phone vibrated on the coffee table, I didn't even care. But then she answered. Hello. Her voice was light, carefree, and in less than 10 seconds, everything collapsed. I saw her body stiffen. I saw her face lose color. I saw the towel she was holding slip from her hands and fall to the floor like dead weight. What do you mean, sold? She whispered, her voice shaking. What do you mean tomorrow? I froze. My pen stopped in the middle of the page. Something was very, very wrong. But I didn't sign anything, my mother almost shouted, her voice breaking. You can't do that. That house is mine too. I paid half. On the other end of the line, I heard the voice of my older sister, Paula, 28 years old, married with 2 children, always distant, always cold. She was saying something, but I couldn't hear her clearly. I just saw my mother break down. The beach house, my mother murmured, the phone shaking in her hand. The car, you sold it, without telling me? And then came the sentence that broke me in half. Paula, on the other side, said something that I picked up just from her tone. Firm, decisive, cruel. My mother closed her eyes. He took a deep breath, and he repeated it out loud, as if he needed to hear it to believe it. Tomorrow, we leave without you. Silence. A silence so heavy that I felt the air disappear from the room. My mother collapsed, literally. She leaned against the kitchen counter, her legs feeling weak, the phone falling to the floor with a thud. She started crying. Not that beautiful movie cry, but that ugly, desperate cry of someone who has just lost everything. And my father? My father left the office. He stopped at the living room door. He looked at her, and he didn't say a word. Just looked, as if that was expected, as if he already knew, as if it were nothing. And it was at that moment, at 13 years old, standing in the middle of the room with my math notebook lying on the floor, that I realized our home was lost forever. I'll tell you the story from the beginning, because what happened that day was not an accident. It wasn't a surprise. It was the end of something that had been building for years, right under my nose, and I, innocent child that I was, had never seen it. My mother's name was Helena. She was 46 years old, a history teacher at a municipal school, and the most dedicated woman I had ever met. I woke up at 5 in the morning every day, prepared coffee, packed lunches for me and my father, ran out to teach, came back in the late afternoon, cooked, cleaned, corrected tests at night. She never stopped. She never complained. And she always put her family first. My sister Paula was the daughter of my mother's first marriage, a marriage that lasted only 3 years, when my mother was in her early 20s. Paula grew up watching my mother fight alone, work hard, build a life from scratch. And when my mother met my father, Ricardo, Paula was already 10 years old and never really accepted him. My father was a businessman. I had an auto parts store that made a reasonable profit. He was the kind of man who seemed generous, but only when it suited him. It paid the house bills, yes, but he always made it clear that the money was his, that he was the provider, that my mother was lucky to have married him. And my mother? My mother swallowed. She worked as much as he did, but her salary was always treated as a little help, as if it were less important, as if she were less important. I didn't understand that at the time. I only saw my mother tired but smiling. I only saw her saying everything was fine, even when it clearly wasn't. The beach house was her dream. She was the one who paid half the entrance fee, with the money she saved during years of giving private lessons on the weekends. She was the one who chose every detail, the color of the walls, the furniture, the curtains. It was the place where she said she would retire one day, where she would spend a little time drinking coffee on the balcony, watching the sea. And Paula had a key, because my mother trusted her, because my mother thought that, even with the distance, they were still mother and daughter. The car, a silver sedan, not luxurious, but it was hers, was also bought with her money. But it was in my father's name, for insurance reasons, he said. Cheaper this way. My mother believed. She always believed. After the phone fell to the floor, I ran to my mother. She was gripping the counter, her shoulders shaking, her face wet with tears. Mom, I whispered, touching her arm. Mom, what happened? She looked at me, but it was as if she didn't see me. Her eyes were empty. I lost of. Broken. They sold it, she murmured, her voice trailing off. They sold the house, the car. They didn't tell me. They didn't ask me. What do you mean they sold it? I asked, without understanding. But it's your house. It was. She took a deep breath, wiping her face with the back of her hand. It was mine. My father was still standing at the door. Ricardo, my mother turned to him, her voice still shaking, but now with a hint of despair. Did you know that? Silence. He looked away. Richard, she almost screamed. Did you know? Paula called me yesterday. He finally spoke, his voice cold, as if he were talking about the weather. He said he had a good proposal, that it was better to sell soon, before it depreciated in value. And you agreed? My mother took a step back, as if she had been punched. Without telling me? Helena, you always complicate things. Paula has power of attorney, she decided. Ready. Power of attorney? My mother's eyes widened. What power of attorney? My father sighed, irritated. The one you signed last year, remember? When you had a broken leg and couldn't go to the registry office to sort out the house deed. My mother turned white. But that was just to resolve the deed, she murmured, her voice trailing off. It wasn't supposed to sell. You signed it. My father shrugged. She used it, and then he went back to the office. He closed the door, and he left my mother there, destroyed, alone, in the middle of the kitchen. I stood still, holding her hand, feeling her tremble, and for the first time in my life, I felt scared. Not afraid of ghosts, of the dark, of math tests, scared of what was happening inside my own home, fear that my mother was being destroyed, and no one was going to do anything to stop it. That night, my mother locked herself in her room. I stood at the door, listening to her crying on the other side. My father didn't even go up to sleep. He stayed in the office until late, on the computer, as if nothing had happened. I went back to my room, but I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, going over everything in my head. The beach house, the car, the power of attorney, Paula, my father. Something didn't make sense. Why would my sister sell the house without telling my mother? Why did my father know and not tell me? Why did he look relieved? And then I remembered something. 3 weeks ago, I was walking past my father's office when I heard voices. The door was ajar. I stopped, not wanting to spy, but it was Paula's voice. She was there, talking to my father. I didn't hear everything, but I've heard enough. She won't accept it, Paula said. She doesn't have to accept it. My father replied, you have the power of attorney. Just use it. What if she finds out? She'll find out, but by then it'll be too late. I didn't understand at the time. I thought they were talking about some business at the store, but now it made perfect sense. They planned this. Both, my sister and my father. They planned to take everything from my mother. The next day, my mother woke up early. She was swollen from crying, but she tried to hide it. He made coffee, prepared my lunch, told me to go to school. Mom, are you okay? I asked before leaving. She smiled, but it was a fake, broken smile. Yes, daughter. Yes, I am. I knew it was a lie. When I came home from school that afternoon, I found my mother sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers in front of her, documents, contracts, the house deed, car registration. She was reading everything, line by line, with red eyes. Mother? She raised her face, and for the first time, I saw something new in her eyes. It was no longer pain, it was anger. They deceived me, she said, her voice firm, controlled. Your sister and your father, they deceived me. She pointed to one of the papers. Here, look here. She showed me a signed document. This power of attorney that I signed, it has full powers. This means that Paula can do anything on my behalf. Sell, buy, transfer, anything. But you didn't know? No, I didn't know. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. I trusted my daughter. And she stole from me. I felt a lump in my throat. And the money from the sale, Mom? Where did it go? She looked at me. And then he smiled. A bitter, sad, destroyed smile. Good question. And that's when she picked up her cell phone and called Paula again. But this time, he didn't cry. This time, she demanded answers. And on the other end of the line, my sister hung up on her. That same night, when I went down to drink water, I saw my father in the office. The door was open. He was on the phone, speaking quietly, but I could hear. Don't worry. She can't prove anything. The money has already been transferred, and the rest, we'll sort it out. He hung up, turned, and he saw me standing there in the hallway looking at him. Our eyes met, and for the first time, I saw myself, father, as he really was, a stranger. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, looking at the ceiling, replaying in my head the scene I had seen. My father on the phone, saying those words. The money has already been transferred. What money? The money from the beach house? From the car? And where did it go? I was 13. I didn't understand anything about powers of attorney, deeds, property sales, but I understood lies, and it all smelled like a lie. The next day I woke up before everyone else. I went down to the kitchen and found my mother already there, sitting at the table with a cold cup of coffee in front of her. She hadn't slept. I knew by the way her eyes looked, swollen, red, tired. Good morning, Mother, I said softly, sitting next to her. She looked at me and tried to smile, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Good morning, my love. Were you up all night? She sighed, running a hand over her face. I was thinking, what did Paula do? She nodded slowly. And what your father didn't do. I frowned. Like this? She looked at me, as if measuring what to say, like I was deciding if I was old enough to hear the truth, and then she spoke. Your father knew, daughter. He knew from the beginning, and he didn't tell me. He didn't warn me. He didn't defend me. Her voice was calm, but broken. He let that happen. I felt a tightness in my chest. Why? I don't know. She lowered her eyes. But I'll find out. And it was at that moment that I decided I was going to help my mother. I was going to find out what was going on. I was going to prove that they had done something wrong. Because if no one was going to defend my mother, I was. Over the next few days, I started paying attention to everything. Every strange movement. All conversation goes down. Every look exchanged between my father and Paula when she appeared at our house. And yes, Paula started to appear. Before, she barely came. She lived on the other side of the city. She had her life, her children, her husband. But suddenly, after selling the house, she started showing up almost every day. And I always went straight to my father's office. Door closed. Muffled conversations. My mother stood in the living room, looking at the locked door, her shoulders tense, her fists clenched. But she didn't say anything. She wasn't confrontational. She just watched. And me too. One afternoon, while Paula was inside with my father, I slowly walked up to the hallway. I put my ear to the door. My heart was beating so hard I was sure they would hear it, but they were too busy arguing. She will want to go to court, Paula said, her voice firm, calculated. Let her try, my father replied, calmly. She has no proof of anything. What if she hires a lawyer? With what money, Paula? She earns $1,000 or so a month. It barely pays her bills. Lawyers are expensive. Paula laughed. A low, cold laugh. And truth, poor thing. I froze. Poor thing. My sister had called my mother a poor thing, disdainfully, disgusted. And my father didn't say anything, didn't defend, didn't fix it. He agreed. I backed away from the door, heart racing, hands shaking. I ran up to my room and locked the door. I sat up in bed, trying to process what I had heard. They were planning something, and it was against my mother. I needed to better understand what had happened. So, that same night, while my mother was taking a shower, I went into her room and took the folder of documents that she had left on the dresser. I sat on the floor, with my back to the door, and began to read. The deed to the beach house was there, and I saw my mother's name was together with my father's name. They owned it together, 50% each, but underneath, on stapled paper, was the power of attorney. I read slowly, trying to understand the difficult words. Grants full powers to Ms. Paula Regina da Silva to represent her in all acts related to movable and immovable assets, including purchase, sale, transfer, full, anything. Paula could do anything in my mother's name, and my mother had signed it without knowing it. But what confused me even more was what I saw at the bottom of the page. A witness. Someone had witnessed my mother's signature, and the name of the witness was Ricardo Mendez, my father. He had testified. He knew exactly what that power of attorney allowed. And he didn't tell my mother. I remember feeling such a wave of anger that my hands began to shake. I wanted to tear up that paper. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to my father's office and throw that in his face, but I couldn't. I was 13. I was a child. Nobody would listen to me. So I put everything back, exactly as it was, and left the room. But now I knew. My father wasn't just silent. He was an accomplice. Cherie. A few days later, Paula appeared again, but this time, she didn't go to the office. She sat in the living room facing my mother, with a serious, almost irritated expression. I was in the hallway, pretending to pack my school bag, but hearing everything. Mom, we need to talk, Paula began, her voice cold. I think so too, my mother replied firmly. I want to know where the money from the sale of the house went. Paula sighed, as if she were dealing with a tantrum child. The money was used to pay debts. What debts? Your debts. My mother's eyes widened. I don't have any debt. Yes, he has. Paula crossed her legs calmly. That loan you took out at the bank 2 years ago. Remember? I already paid that loan. No, he didn't pay. You were late. And the bank was going to foreclose on the beach house. So I sold it beforehand, so as not to lose everything. Lie. I knew it was a lie, because my mother had shown me proof of repayment of that loan. She had saved it, proudly saying that she had finally gotten rid of that debt. But Paula was there, sitting in our living room, looking into my mother's eyes, and lying, shamelessly. Paula, my mother took a deep breath, her voice shaking. I paid off that loan. I have the proof. Then show it. It's saved. I'll look for it now. Excellent. In the meantime, I'm leaving. I have things to do. And Paula got up, took her bag, and left, without even saying goodbye, without even looking back. My mother stood there, her hands shaking, her face pale. And when she ran up to her room to look for the receipt, I went up after her. She opened the drawer where she kept important documents, turned everything over, papers, receipts, contracts, letters, and he didn't find it. The loan repayment receipt was missing. No, my mother whispered, desperate, throwing papers everywhere. I kept it here. I saved it here. Mom, I said softly. Did anyone catch it? She stopped. He looked at me, and then he looked at the bedroom door. My father was there, standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching us. Looking for something? He asked, his voice neutral. Proof of the loan, my mother said, her voice shaking. Did you see? No. Ricardo, I kept it here. Did you go through my things? He shrugged. Must have lost it. I didn't lose it! My mother screamed, her voice breaking. Someone took it, and I know who it was. My father looked at her, without blinking, without getting upset. Be careful with accusations, Helena. You are very stressed, paranoid. Maybe you should see a psychologist. And left. He left my mother there, destroyed, in the middle of the room, surrounded by scattered papers. And I, at 13 years old, understood for the first time what silent cruelty was. Now, out of that night, I didn't make it to dinner. I stayed in the room, lying down, thinking about everything. My mother didn't come down either. She was locked in her room, crying softly. My father had dinner alone. He ate, washed the plate, and went back to the office, as if nothing had happened. And that's when I had an idea. If my father was hiding things, maybe they were in his office. Maybe the receipt was there, or other evidence. Anything that could help my mother. I just needed to wait for the right time. 3 days later, my father left to run something at the store. My mother was teaching. I was alone at home, and the office was unlocked. My heart raced. I knew this was wrong, but I also knew that if I didn't do anything, my mother would continue to suffer. So I entered. The office was small, full of papers, folders, accounting books. The table was messy. There was an old computer in the corner, turned off. I started opening the drawers slowly, careful not to make any noise. In the first drawer, bills, nothing much. In the second, store documents, contracts, invoices. In the third, under a pile of papers, I found a manila envelope. I opened it, and I froze. Inside were copies of bank statements, but they were none of my father's business. They were my mother's business, and next to it, handwritten notes, calculations, dates, values, and in the corner of the page in my father's handwriting, total available, $47,000, transfer to joint account, date, 22/09, 7 days before the house is sold. My father had accessed my mother's account. I had seen how much she had saved, and I had planned to transfer everything. I was shaking when I heard the front door open. My father had returned. I quickly put everything back in the envelope, closed the drawer, and ran out of the office. I went up the stairs, went into my room, and closed the door. My heart was beating so hard that I could barely breathe, but now I had proof that my father was stealing from my mother, and I needed to tell her. But that same night, I went down to get water and saw my mother in the kitchen, sitting at the table, with her laptop open. She was staring at the screen, pale, in shock. "Mother," I whispered. What it was. She turned the notebook towards me. On the screen, her bank statement was open, and all her savings, the $47,000 she had saved over years of work, had been transferred, for an account she didn't know. On September 22nd, exactly as it was written in my father's notes, he stole it. My mother whispered, her voice trailing off. "Your father stole everything from me." And then her cell phone rang. It was Paula. My mother answered in shock and put it on speakerphone, and my sister's voice echoed through the kitchen, cold, calculated, cruel. "Mom, forget that money. You'll never see it back. And if you try anything, you'll lose a lot more than that." After that call, my mother hung up the phone and stood still. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. She just sat there, sitting in the kitchen, looking at her laptop screen as if she were trying to process the impossible. "Mom," I whispered, getting closer. "What are we going to do?" She took a while to respond. When she finally spoke, her voice was different. It was no longer that crying, broken, desperate voice. It was cold. "I'm going after my money." And the next day, she missed work for the first time in years. He went to the bank. I remember going along. My mother asked me to skip class, something she would never do under normal circumstances. But that wasn't a normal day. We sat in the bank waiting room for almost an hour. My mother held a folder full of documents, her fingers gripping the edges so hard her knuckles turned white. When we were finally called, we entered a small room. The manager, a middle-aged man in a gray suit, looked at my mother with that polite, fake smile of someone who already knows there's going to be trouble. "Good morning, Mrs. Helena. How can I help you? I want to know who authorized the transfer of 47,000 Rs from my account." My mother got straight to the point, her voice firm. The manager typed something into the computer, frowning. "Oh yes, this transfer was made on September 22nd at 2:37 p.m. He looked at the screen. "Authorized by you." "I didn't authorize anything, but it was done through the bank's app, using your password and security token. I didn't make this transfer. Someone used my password. The manager sighed, as if he had heard it 1,000 times. Madam, the bank is not responsible for shared passwords. If someone had access to your account, it is because you provided the data. I did not provide it. My mother raised her voice, and I saw the people in line outside turn to look. I'm sorry, but without proof that there was fraud, there's nothing we can do. And where did that money go? For which account? The manager hesitated. He looked at the screen, then to my mother. For a joint account, registered in the name of the lady and Ricardo Mendez. My mother turned white. Joint account? I never opened a joint account with him. According to our records, it opened 3 months ago. In person, with your signature and document. My mother was silent for a few seconds, processing this. And then, slowly, she asked, "Can I see the signature?" The manager turned the monitor to her, and there it was, a scanned copy of an account opening form, with my mother's signature. But my mother looked at it and shook her head slowly. That signature is not mine. Like this, that signature was forged. The manager sighed, irritated. Madam, please. I know what my signature is. My mother slammed her hand on the table. And this one is not. The manager was uncomfortable. He looked at me, as if waiting for me to calm my mother, but I just looked back at him, silent. Look, Mrs. Helena, he said in a condescending tone. You are clearly stressed. Maybe it's better to go home, rest, and then we can sort this out calmly, okay? My mother got up. I'm going to sue this bank, and left. I ran after her. On the way back home, my mother drove in silence. I could see the tears streaming down her face, but she didn't make a sound. He just held the steering wheel tightly, eyes fixed on the road. Mom, I said softly, we will be able to prove that it was a forgery. She didn't respond. When we got home, my father was in the living room, watching TV. He didn't even look up when we entered. Richard, my mother stopped in front of him. Did you open a joint account with me? He looked at her calmly. Open. About 3 months ago. How? I never went to the bank with you. Did you sign the papers? Feed at home. Remember? I said it was to make things easier. I never signed anything. My father shrugged. You had that bad headache. Took medicine. Maybe I don't remember correctly. My mother's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you telling me that I signed an account opening and I don't remember? It happens. You're very stressed, Helena. Forgotten. He looked back at the TV. You should see a doctor. And that's when I realized what he was doing. He was trying to make my mother doubt herself. Gaslighting. I had read about this in a Portuguese class, when we studied a text about psychological violence, and that's exactly what my father was doing. Making my mother think she was crazy, that she was to blame, that she was wrong. Then that night, Paula appeared again. And this time, she brought her husband, Junior, a tall, thin man, always wearing sunglasses, who worked in business, but never really explained what. They sat in the living room, and my mother went to confront them. You stole my money, she said firmly, standing in front of the two. Paula sighed, irritated. Mom, for God's sake, we didn't steal anything. We used the money to pay our debts. What debts? I have no debts. Junior, who had been silent until then, took a piece of paper out of his pocket and placed it on the table. This debt. My mother took the paper, and she turned pale. It was a billing notice from a furniture store, worth $18,000. I've never bought anything from this store, my mother screamed. Yes, he bought it, Paula said calmly. 2 years ago. Remember that sofa you wanted to buy? He owed money. I paid for that sofa in cash. No, he didn't pay, and the debt went to Ricardo's name. That's why he transferred the money from your account to pay. My mother looked at my father, who was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, saying nothing. Ricardo, is this true? Yeah, I paid the debt with money from the joint account, which is technically our money. But I never authorized you to use my money. You signed the opening of the joint account. That gives me the right to use it. My mother started to shake, of anger, of despair, of impotence. You are lying. You forged this debt. You forged my signature. Mom, Paula interrupted her, her voice hard, so as to, you look crazy. I'm not crazy, so stop pretending that we are conspiring against you. Paula got up, irritated. You're paranoid, Mom. You need help. And then, Junior spoke, his voice calm, cold. Maybe it would be better to admit her. Silence. My mother looked at him in shock. What? Admit. To treat. You're clearly freaking out. It's not right in the head. I'm not freaking out. Yes. My father finally spoke, approaching. They're accusing everyone of theft, of conspiracy. She's getting aggressive. You're losing control. Because you are stealing from me. It saw? Paula looked at Junior. She can't even take care of herself. Imagine the girl. I froze. They were talking about me. We should ask for custody, Paula continued, as if she were discussing what to eat for dinner. For her sake. Nobody will take my daughter from me, my mother shouted, placing herself in front of me, her arms open like a shield. Paula shrugged. We'll see. And they left. The three, Paula, Junior, and my father. They left us alone. My mother collapsed onto the couch, her shoulders shaking, her face in her hands, and I, for the first time, felt truly scared, not afraid of monsters, not afraid of ghosts, scared of losing my mother. Over the next few days, things got worse. My father started bringing witnesses home, neighbors, acquaintances, even his sister showed up, everyone saying the same thing, that my mother was strange, different, aggressive. My mother tried to defend herself, but every time she spoke, someone said she was overreacting, being dramatic, making a case. And me? I just watched, in silence, seeing my mother being deconstructed piece by piece, until one afternoon returning from school, I saw a strange car parked in front of the house. I entered and found my mother in the living room, surrounded by 2 women in white coats. Social workers. What's going on? I asked, scared. Hey, my dear. One of them smiled at me, that fake adult smile that wants to appear friendly. We just came to visit. Are you all right? Yes. Why? Your father and sister are worried about your mother. They said she's been unsteady. I looked at my mother. She was sitting on the couch, head down, shoulders hunched, defeated. My mother is not unstable, I said firmly. She's being robbed. The social workers exchanged a look. Honey, you don't need to defend your mother. If anything, if it's wrong, you can tell us. Nothing is wrong. They are so lying. Who? My father, my sister, her husband. They stole my mother's money. They sold her house. They forged her signature. One of the women wrote something down on a clipboard. I understand. And did you see this happen? I saw documents. I heard conversations. I know they're lying. Okay, thank you, dear. And they left. But first, one of them turned to my mother and said, you will need to undergo a psychological evaluation. It's protocol. We get in touch. And when they left, my mother looked at me, her eyes full of tears. They're going to take you away from me. I hugged her, tightly. No, they won't. But I wasn't sure. 2 days later, when I came home from school, I found the house empty. My mother wasn't there. Her things were still there. The bag, the cell phone, the keys, but she was gone. I ran to the neighbor, desperate, and asked if he had seen my mother. Yes, I saw it, he said. He went out in the morning with his father and a woman in a lab coat. It looked like he was going to the hospital. My blood ran cold. What hospital? I don't know, daughter, but she didn't look well. I was crying a lot. I ran back home and grabbed my mother's cell phone. There was a message from Paula, just 4 words. Now she doesn't get in the way anymore. My mother had been admitted to a psychiatric clinic. Yes, you read that right. My father, with the support of Paula and her husband, got a doctor to sign a document saying that my mother posed a risk to herself and others. And with that, she was taken away. I was 13. I couldn't do anything. I had no voice. I had no power. I was just afraid. For 3 days, I was alone at home with my father. He barely spoke to me. He left early, came back late, locked himself in the office. Paula appeared from time to time, always with that look of superiority, as if now she had won. I tried calling my mom, but her cell phone was at home, in the drawer, no battery, abandoned. I tried to ask my father where she was. He just said, in a place where you can rest. Rest, as if my mother had asked for a vacation, as if she had chosen to be there. But I knew the truth. They had arrested my mother. Hasney. On the 3rd day, when I returned from school, I found a woman sitting in the classroom. She was short, with gray hair tied in a bun, thick prescription glasses, and a large folder on her lap. He was wearing a navy blue blazer and had a serious but not hostile expression. Hey, my dear. She smiled when she saw me. You must be Helena's daughter. I stopped at the door, suspicious. Who are you? My name is Dr. Mariana. I'm a lawyer. I came to talk to you. Attorney? My heart accelerated. About my mother? Exactly. I looked around. My father wasn't there. The house was empty. How did you find me? Your mother called me. Dr. Mariana opened the folder and took out a piece of paper. Before being admitted, she managed to make a phone call, for me, and he told me everything. I felt a tightness in my chest. Is she okay? No. The lawyer was direct, bluntly. She is being forcibly medicated. It's isolated. And if we don't do anything, it could stay there indefinitely. But they can't do that. She's not crazy. I know, and that's exactly why I'm here. She leaned forward, her voice low but firm. Your mother asked me to get her out of there. And to do that, I need proof. Evidence that this was all set up. I have proof, I said, desperate. I saw the papers. I heard conversations. I know my father forged her signature. Can you show me? I hesitated. I looked at the stairs. To my father's office. And then I made a decision. Yes, but it has to be now, before he came back. For the next 20 minutes, Dr. Mariana and I searched my father's office. She knew exactly what to look for. Bank statements, contracts, signed documents, printed emails, and we found everything. The power of attorney with a forged signature. the opening of the joint account with a completely different signature from my mother, the statements showing the transfers, and the worst, emails between my father and Paula, planning everything. She won't be able to prove it. We've already moved the money. What if she goes to find a lawyer? She doesn't have the money for that. And even if she tries, we already have the hospitalization on the record. No one will believe her. Dr. Mariana photographed each page with her cell phone. Then he put everything back exactly as it was. "Good job, darling," she told me, holding my shoulder. "You just saved your mother." And then she left. And I stood there, in the middle of the room, shaking, afraid of what would come next. And 2 days later, my mother was released. Dr. Mariana obtained a habeas corpus. He presented the evidence to the judge. It showed that the hospitalization had been forced, without consent, based on false allegations, and the judge ordered my mother to be released immediately. I will never forget the day she came home. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was in my room, doing homework, when I heard the front door open. I ran downstairs, and there she was, skinny, pale, with deep dark circles, the disheveled hair, clothes that are too loose, but live. "Mother!" I ran and threw myself into her arms. She hugged me so tight that I felt her tremble. She smelled like disinfectant and medicine, but I didn't care. She was back. She was here. "I'm sorry, daughter," she whispered in my ear, her voice hoarse. "I'm sorry I left you alone. You didn't let me, Mom. They took you, but now it's over. You're here." She pulled away, held my face with both hands, and looked me in the eyes. "It's not over yet, but it will end. I promise." And in that moment, I saw something new in my mother's eyes. It was no longer pain. It was no longer fear. It was determination. My father wasn't home when my mother arrived, but when he returned at night and saw her sitting in the living room, next to Dr. Mariana, he stopped at the door. "Helena?" he said, trying to hide his surprise. "Like you? I left," my mother replied coldly, legally, with court order. My father looked at the lawyer, then back at my mother. "Did you hire a lawyer?" "Hired. And she already has enough evidence to sue you for forged signature, embezzlement, and false imprisonment." My father's face turned red. "What are you talking about?" Dr. Mariana got up calmly and placed a folder on the coffee table. "I'm talking about the evidence we got. Emails, extracts, forged documents, all." She opened the folder and showed the copies. "You and your stepdaughter set everything up. They sold goods without consent. They forged signatures. They transferred money illegally. And they even forcibly hospitalized Mrs. Helena to try to silence her." My father turned pale. This won't lead to anything. I have lawyers too." "Excellent." Dr. Mariana smiled. "You'll need it, because tomorrow morning, I'm going to file 3 lawsuits, 1 criminal, 1 civil, and a request for divorce with division of assets. And you can be sure that Mrs. Helena will receive what is hers, with interest and correction." Silence. My father looked at my mother, then for me, then back to the lawyer, and then he did what he always did when confronted, ran away. He went up to his room and locked the door. In the following days, everything happened very quickly. Dr. Mariana filed the lawsuits. My mother asked for a protective order. My father was banned from approaching her. He left home and went to live in a rented apartment. Paula was notified. The police opened an investigation for document forgery and embezzlement. And then, the day of the hearing arrived. The hearing was scheduled for Monday, at 10 a.m., at the city courthouse. My mother took me along. She said I had a right to be there, to see the end of it. When we entered the room, Paula was already there, sitting next to her lawyer, a man in an expensive suit, with a look like he thought he was going to win easily. My father was in the back, arms crossed, avoiding looking at my mother. Junior, Paula's husband, was also there, with that landscape face he always had. On our side was Dr. Mariana, calm, trusting, with a huge pile of documents. The judge entered. Everyone stood up, and it started. Dr. Mariana presented everything, point by point. He showed the emails between my father and Paula, planning the sale of the beach house. He showed the comparison between my mother's real signature and the forged signature on the power of attorney. He showed bank statements proving that the money was transferred without authorization. He showed the psychiatric report, written by an independent doctor, certifying that my mother did not show any signs of mental disorder. And he showed Paula's messages. Now she doesn't get in the way anymore. The judge read everything, slowly, in silence. And then he looked at Paula and my father. "Do you gentlemen have anything to say?" Paula's lawyer tried to argue. He said it had all been a misunderstanding, that Paula had acted in good faith, that she just wanted to protect her mother, but the judge wasn't buying it. "Good faith?" He raised an eyebrow. "You forged your own mother's signature, sold goods without authorization, transferred money, and he even tried to forcibly admit her. This is not good faith. This is a crime." Paula turned white. I was just trying to help." "To help?" My mother stood up, her voice shaking but firm. You betrayed me, Paula. You, who I created alone. You, who I protected when no one else did. You teamed up with him," she pointed at my father, "and stole from me. It humiliated me, tried to destroy me." Paula looked away. "And the worst thing of all," my mother continued, tears flowing, "is that you did this in front of your sister. You showed her that family doesn't matter, that love is worthless, that money is everything." "Mom, don't call me Mom." My mother cut her off, her voice hard. "You lost that right." Heavy silence. The judge banged the gavel. "Decision. The sale of the beach house is annulled. The money transferred must be returned in full, with interest and monetary correction. Ms. Paula will be criminally liable for document forgery, and Mr. Ricardo will be responsible for misappropriation and false imprisonment. Divorce process granted. Sharing of assets in favor of Mrs. Helena." My father tried to protest, but the judge ignored him. And it was only when we left that room, and I saw my mother take a deep breath, her shoulders finally relaxed, that I realized we had won. But the story didn't end there, because 3 days later, when we returned home after a consultation with Dr. Mariana, we found the door to our house broken into. We entered, scared, and the house was torn apart. Broken furniture, open drawers, papers scattered across the floor. In the middle of the room, painted with red paint on the wall, was written, "You will pay for this." And underneath, my mother found a photo of me, taken when leaving school, with a red X over my face. My mother held the photo with shaking hands. It was me, leaving school, with a pink backpack on her back, smiling, distracted, without knowing that someone was photographing me. And that red X over my face. "We need to get out of here. Now." My mother pulled me by the arm, her voice firm but terrified. "Mom, who did this?" "I don't know, but we won't stay here to find out." We grabbed the essentials, clothes, documents, cell phones, and ran out. We went to Dr. Mariana's house, who welcomed us without blinking. She called the police. We registered the incident report. We took photos of everything, the ransacked house, the message on the wall, the photo with the X, and then the police began to investigate. Statunisan. It only took 2 days to find out who had done it. Junior, Paula's husband. The street security cameras captured him entering our house, wearing a hood, in the middle of the afternoon. He had a key, probably made by Paula, who still had access to the house before the divorce was finalized. When the police went to his house to question him, they found more things. Prints of my mother's social networks, notes with schedules and routes she took, and, worst of all, messages between him and Paula. "You need to scare her. If she continues with the process, we'll lose everything. What if we scare the daughter? Even better, she'll give up right away." But they didn't count on one thing. My mother wouldn't give up. Never again. So, the junior was arrested. Paula was named as co-author. My father tried to distance himself from everything, saying he didn't know anything, that he never asked to do that. But old emails proved otherwise. He had planned everything together with Paula, and now he was trying to save his own skin. But it was too late. Dr. Mariana used everything, against them, and he got an urgent injunction. My father was banned from approaching me and my mother. Paula lost visitation rights to her mother, not that she wanted to, but now she was officially banned. And Junior was going to answer for threat, home invasion, and criminal association. And the best part, the judge ordered that the money, all the money stolen from my mother, be returned immediately, with interest, with correction, with a fine. 47,000 raised turned into 63,000, and my mother got every penny. 2 weeks later, the final divorce hearing took place. I didn't go this time. I stayed at school, but my mother told me everything when she came back, her eyes red, but smiling. She entered that room with her head held high, wearing a blue blazer that Dr. Mariana had borrowed, with documents organized in a folder, and with the certainty that this time she would win. My father tried to negotiate until the end. He asked to divide the assets fairly. He said he also had a right to the house, the car, the money, but the judge was clear. "You forged signatures, appropriated assets illegally, conspired with third parties to commit fraud, and he even tried to intimidate the victim and his underage daughter. You have no right to anything." And he hit the hammer. Divorce granted. All goods to my mother. Pens are defined food. And my father? My father left that room alone, defeated, and never tried to contact me again. Over the next few months, my mother began to rebuild her life. First, we sold the house where we lived, that house full of bad memories, of walls that had heard so many screams, so much pain. And with the money from the sale, added to what she had recovered, we bought a small apartment, but ours, just ours. An apartment with 2 bedrooms, a sunny kitchen, and a balcony where my mother placed vases of flowers. She always wanted to have a garden, and now, finally, it had. She returned to teaching. He really smiled again. He sang that old song again while washing dishes. And me? I saw my mother reborn. I saw her wake up without fear, leave home without looking back, sleep peacefully, without locking the bedroom door. She had won, not just in court, not just financially, she had won from within. Paula never spoke to us again. Junior served his sentence. He left after a while, but their marriage didn't survive. I heard that Paula moved to another city, far away, trying to start over. I don't know if he succeeded. I'm not bothered, because I learned one thing in those nightmarish months. There are people who, when they see you going up, will do everything they can to pull you back down. There are people who, even if they are from your family, even if they are of your blood, will betray you. It will rob you. It will try to destroy you. And the only thing you can do is walk away, cut off contact, and move on. My mother did this, and he taught me to do the same. A few months later, one Saturday morning, I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee coming from the kitchen. I went downstairs in my pajamas, yawning, and found my mother sitting on the balcony of the apartment with a cup of coffee in her hands, looking at the horizon. The sun was rising. The sky was orange and pink. "Good morning, Mother," I said, sitting next to her. "Good morning, my love." She smiled, passing me a cup of coffee with milk. We sat there in silence, just watching the day begin. And then, without looking at me, she said, "You know I'm grateful for you, right?" I looked at her, surprised. "For me?" "Yeah, because you stayed by my side, for helping me, for being my witness." She turned her face to me, her eyes shining. "I wouldn't have done it without you." I felt my throat tighten. "I only did what was right, Mom." "No, you did more than that. You gave me strength when I didn't have it anymore. You believed in me when everyone else doubted." She held my hand. "You saved me." I hugged her tightly, and we stayed there, crying softly but smiling, because now everything was fine. Finally, everything was fine. Today, years later, when I look back, I see everything clearly. I see that my mother was not perfect. She made mistakes. He trusted too much. He believed in people who didn't deserve it. He signed papers without reading them properly. She let them walk on her for too long. But do you know what else I see? I see courage. I see a woman who, despite being destroyed, got up, who even alone fought. That, even without money, without support, without anyone believing in her, she went after justice, and he succeeded. My mother taught me that life will test you, that people will disappoint you, that sometimes the person who should protect you will be the one who hurts you. But it also taught me that you can get up, that you can start over, that you can win, even when everything seems lost. And that, in the end, the greatest victory is not the money you recover, or the house you win back, or the sentence that comes out in your favor. The greatest victory is to look in the mirror and recognize yourself again. It's sleeping in peace. It's waking up without fear. It's living again. Today, my mother is retired. He lives in that same small apartment with the balcony full of flowers. He gives private lessons from time to time because he likes it, not because he needs it. Travel whenever you want. Buy what you want. Live how you want. And me, I graduated. I became a lawyer, inspired by Dr. Mariana, who practically became part of the family. And today I defend women like my mother, women who were deceived, robbed, humiliated. And every time I see one of them get up, win, regain their lives, I remember that day, from that phone that rang, from that voice that said, "The beach house and car have been sold. Tomorrow, we leave without you." And I remember how, in that moment, I was sure that our home was lost forever. But I was wrong, because home is not a place. It's not a house. It's not a city. Home is where you feel safe, where you are loved, where you can be who you are without fear. And my home has always been, and always will be, next to my mother. And no one can take that away from me. So, if you are going through something similar, if someone is trying to destroy you, steal from you, silence you, I want you to know, you are not alone. You can fight, you can win, and you deserve justice. Don't give up. Don't lower your head. Don't let anyone turn off your light, because in the end, the truth always wins, and you will win too. Fam Wang, and you. Have you ever experienced betrayal within your own family? Do you know someone who was wronged and managed to turn things around? Tell me here in the comments. I want to know your story. And if this story touched you, if you identified, if you believe someone needs to hear this, share it, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, because every week I bring real stories, or inspired by real cases, of overcoming, justice, and starting over. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for being here with me and my mother on this journey. See you in the next video. And remember, you are stronger than you imagine.